Aston Martin. Its name comes from the Aston Hill Climb and the company's founder, Lionel Martin. It was the car of choice for James Bond and racers who wanted to take on Ferraris. But it fell on hard times, only to be rescued by an American company. Today, Aston Martin is once again a world-class exotic car. Aston Martins enjoy a reputation for quality, style, engineering, and performance. The future of Aston Martin is epitomized by the DB9, a 2+2 sports car that promises to delight drivers with its handling, V12 power, beautiful design, and hand craftsmanship. It reassured enthusiasts that the passion would still be there in the modern Aston Martins. This passion is a constant that's run through the company's turbulent history. It was underscored when Aston Martin was the featured car maker at the world's most prestigious car collector show, Pebble Beach. The organizers of this annual event pride themselves on bringing together the finest examples of the best cars in the world. The collection of Aston Martins they brought to Pebble Beach was no exception. The company was founded in 1914 by auto enthusiast Lionel Martin. By 1925, the company had established its racing credentials. This car broke records on the banked track of England's Brooklands Raceway. Racing victories brought in customers for the company's road cars, but not enough. The company collapsed in late 1925 and Martin left. Others stepped in to pick up the pieces and launched Aston Martin Motors in 1926. By 1933, it had developed a reputable number of reliable road cars, such as this 1933 sports touring car. But racing wasn't forgotten. Pure sports versions finished first and second in their class and fifth and seventh overall at the 24-hour race at Le Mans in 1933. The driver of the second-place car was one of the company's new directors, Cesar Bertelli. He pushed for the development of this 1934 sports sedan. He used the same engine found in the sports cars in an attempt to broaden the appeal of Aston Martin. While the sedans were appealing to those who just dreamed of racing, Aston Martins were still scoring victories on the track. The cars captured another class win at Le Mans and in the Tourist Trophy race held on the roads of Northern Ireland. The company christened the winning model the Ulster to commemorate its victory. While racing was exciting, it was clear that the company needed to focus on its touring cars. They felt there was a market for the sporty road machines. Models like this custom-bodied 1937 drophead coupe combined elegance with superior road handling and performance. It was equipped with a new 2-litre version of their 4-cylinder engine, which gave it the power needed to handle the Roadster's heavier bodies. Its elegant styling is still a crowd pleaser. By 1939, the company had become swept up in the streamlined era with its concept car, the Atom. It was full of futuristic features like independent front suspension, an early form of a space frame chassis, and an electric semi-automatic transmission. It was used throughout World War II, and even though it never went into production, it influenced the first generation of post-war Aston Martins. The war put a stop to all of Aston Martin's activities. There was no time to worry about road racing and luxury cars when the country was under attack. The war took a bitter toll, but the resilient British turned their remarkable manufacturing skills to building armaments and prevailed. The British economy was in tatters after the war, but everyone wanted to get back to business as soon as the rubble was cleared. The Atom was dusted off as work began on the next generation of Aston Martins. This effort would be guided by David Brown, head of David Brown Tractors, who bought the company in 1947 and combined it with its rival, Lagonda. Aston had a good chassis, and Lagonda a new six-cylinder overhead valve engine designed by W.O. Bentley. Brown combined the two, and the result was a dynamic series of cars bearing Brown's initials, DB. Starting in 1948, the DB2s began to turn heads on the street and on the track. A larger 2.6-litre engine made more racing victories possible. In 1950, the DB2 took first in the Index of Performance at Le Mans, where it won the 3-litre class. More racing victories followed at Spa, Monza, and in other sports car events. David Brown succeeded in rescuing the noble cars and putting them back on the track and the road. While racing wins garnered headlines, it was sales of the road cars that kept the factory open. Brown was able to build both Lagondas and Aston Martins at the same plant. These were luxury cars for those who liked to drive. Their understated good breeding may have been influenced by being created in the shop of one of the country's oldest coach builders, Salmon & Sons. The production facilities, built in the early 1800s, were once known as the coach builders to nobility, but it was now the home to Aston Martin and Lagonda. The influence of classic styling was immediately recognized. These were not cars that sought to stun buyers with flashy chrome or wild fins. It was about timeless elegance and styling finesse. All these elements found their way into the next Aston Martin, the Db4. By the mid-50s, this car became a favorite with Italian custom bodybuilders. Bertone of Turin and others gladly crafted coachwork for their clients who needed a larger car but still wanted to be sporty. The Db4 was a beautiful marriage of British engineering and Italian styling. David Brown would continue to use this formula on future Aston Martins. This approach created some of the most elegant British sports cars ever built, including this stunning Bertone two-seat Spider convertible. It was the perfect car for a well-heeled weekend racer. Whether a convertible, roadster or coupe, the DB4 lent itself beautifully to the designer's touch. Like this stylish Bertone coupe from 1957. In 1961, Bertone created a custom body for David Brown's newest car, the DB4. Astons were truly cars for the international market. People who had money, good taste, and wanted something a little different, but who didn't really want to call too much attention to themselves, turned to Aston Martin. Even in its stock trim, designed by Touring of Milan, the DB4 was hailed as a major leap forward. This clean and elegant coupe was powered by a 3.7-litre aluminum engine. It was an instant classic.
What set Aston Martin apart from the other manufacturers was the quality of the product. On the DB4, the body was made by Touring of Milan, which were coach builders, and it was really a high-quality product. It handled beautifully, it looked great, and it was really the epitome of what you could want in a sports car at the time.
This is a car that you could take on a long journey, or if you wanted to go out and show somebody the fast way around a track, you could do that too.
Its stunning body and race-proven engineering made it a car that lived up to its pedigree.
It appealed to a class of people that really had the money to buy really any car they wanted.
The DB4 also wore the coachwork of other noted Italian designers, like Zagato. They created what many believe is the best-looking Aston Martin ever built, the Db4 Gt Z, more commonly known as the Zagato GT. Aston Martin hoped that its new GT, with its lighter body and shorter wheelbase, would be competitive against the Ferrari GT 250s. Drivers like Jim Clark campaigned the GTs, but they were not quite up to displacing the 250 Ferraris. This hasn't diminished their popularity or value. Aston Martin decided to return to Le Mans in 1962 with an official factory entry, the DP212. It was the first of 3 prototypes called the Project Cars. The DP212 held second place for a time at Le Mans, but had to retire due to engine trouble. The team discovered that the cars had some aerodynamic problems at high speeds. Flattening the rear and adding an upturned spoiler solved the problem in 1963. The DP214 was the most successful of the series. Roy Salvadori took it to Monza and beat the Ferrari GTOs on their home ground. Before turning to racing cars based on its road models, Aston Martin had concentrated its effort on pure sports race cars. The DB3S was always a strong competitor in the 3-litre class in the mid-50s. It was often a contender even against cars with bigger engines like Ferrari, Jaguar and Maserati. It won at Goodwood and Northern Ireland's Tourist Trophy. It placed at the Nürburgring and at Le Mans. No matter where it raced, it was always a strong competitor. It was succeeded by the DBR1, which continued Aston's streak on the track. In 1959, the new car brought Aston Martin the World's Sports Car Championship and won the Le Mans 24-hour race. The season hadn't started too well. Driver Carroll Shelby retired from Sebring with clutch problems. 3 months later, he and Roy Salvadori were rewarded with a victory at Le Mans. This is what David Brown had wanted for so long. Other victories at the Nürburgring and the Goodwood Tourist Trophy won Aston Martin the World Manufacturers title. It had taken 46 years, 4 different owners, and a massive investment by David Brown to give Aston Martin the right to claim to be the best sports car in the world. It was a heady time for everyone involved. It brought Carroll Shelby fame, but he was told by his doctors that a heart condition would sideline him from racing. Shelby had learned a lot while driving for the team and decided to put it to use.
I drove for a team that was not very well known then, but it's very well known now, Aston Martin. And a fellow named John Wire was the team manager. And I used to hang around the factory where they were building the cars, as well as driving, going out and testing.
This hands-on racing academy had prepared Shelby to launch his own company. He knew the European racing rules, what the cars could do, and what it took to build a car and a team. He was determined not to let his heart problem stop him. He went on to build the Cobra and come back to Le Mans as head of Ford's victorious GT40 effort. He's still going strong after a heart and kidney transplant. This racing legend is a superstar to his fans who line up for autographs whenever he attends an event. He's never forgotten the debt he owes to Aston Martin.
The years that I drove for Aston Martin were the years that I was planning to build my own car. And Aston Martin and John Wire and all the people, the engineers at Aston Martin are the ones that helped me learn how to build a Cobra.
The car that he and Roy Salvadori piloted to victory at Le Mans is also seen at vintage racing events. The Aston is still a strong competitor at these meets. The glory days of racing faded away as Aston Martin began to concentrate on building road cars. The traditions of hand craftsmanship remained as it built new models in the 1960s. The DB6 stayed in production until 1971. But it was having a hard time navigating the increasingly competitive automotive market. The company changed hands several times and tried new models. But it continued to slip. The era of the independent automaker was coming to a close. It was just too expensive to meet all the emissions and safety regulations, develop new models, mount a marketing campaign, and keep up with the ever-increasing demands of the buyers. Ford Motor Company offered some help in 1987 when it bought 75% of the shares in Aston Martin. This cash influx helped, but in 1993, Ford took complete ownership of the company and invested £64 million, about $100 million, for new designs, development, and manufacturing facilities. This allowed the company to create the DB7. In 1995, a record 700 new cars were built and delivered. The first 12-cylinder Aston Martin was ready in 1999. This engine was a joint effort of Ford's Advanced Vehicle team and Cosworth.
DB7 Vantage has an all-new 420 horsepower 6-litre V12 engine. Gives the car a top speed of more than 180 miles an hour and allows it to accelerate to 60 miles an hour in under 5 seconds. As well as that, it's got an extensive program of body and chassis modifications to allow it to cope with the extra performance.
With Ford's marketing assistance, it was sold in over 31 countries to enthusiasts who wanted a sophisticated car that handled well, had exceptional braking, and was fast. While it was acclaimed as one of the world's most beautiful automobiles, the designers continued to refine the car. Jacques Nasser, who was Ford's chairman at the time, went to England to see if it was possible to improve on the DB7's good looks.
It makes the DB7 look a little sloppy, yet the DB7 is one of the tightest proportioned vehicles on the road. Well, in this particular case, the Project Vantage concept vehicle is an exercise in technology, but it is more than that also, because it's a tremendous opportunity for Ford Advanced Vehicle Technologies and Cosworth and Aston Martin to get together and test the limits of everything that they do well.
Well, what we're trying to do with this car is really to explore some new concepts in styling, both exterior styling and interior styling, and try and gauge reaction to that.
Okay, how much do you want for it, Bob?
Let's talk a bit later.
He couldn't sell the car, but he could let him drive it. This one became a test bed for technology and design. The styling cues and powerful V12 showed up in the Vanquish in 2000. This 4,000-pound car was designed to vanquish Ferrari's 550 Maranello. While the Ferrari was at home in the Italian countryside, Aston Martin's engineers made sure that their new car could handle the rigors of a rougher climate. Tradition met technology and merged to create a road car with a top speed of about 190 miles per hour. As the Vanquish was burning up the streets, a design team was busy laying out the foundation for the future of Aston Martin with the DB9. It was an entirely new model. They realized it had to be a completely modern car to compete against others selling for more than $200,000. Using a radical new aluminum-bonded body frame, the DB9 is one of the most sophisticated and technically advanced sports cars in the world. Featuring full leather bridge-of-wear upholstery and a state-of-the-art music system, it's also one of the most luxurious. It had all the elements that made the name Aston Martin famous. For nearly 90 years, the company has been building cars for gentlemen who like good styling and a fast drive. Keeping up with the pack has been a challenge at times, but it looks like Aston Martin has found a way to deliver.